Elden Ring is awesome, and if I'm being real, the build variety is my favorite aspect of the game. Because of how many awesome weapons and spells you have at your disposal, I'm pretty much always down for another playthrough in order to give things I haven't tried yet a shot. And since Shadow of the Erdtree is literally right around the corner at this point, I'd like to make a video going over my current favorite weapons in the game. As for the criteria, there honestly really isn't any criteria. Some of these weapons are here because I think their movesets make bosses more engaging to fight, while others just turn boss fights into a joke. In general, I'd say most of my choices are considered to be top tier, but at the end of the day, it really is just a list of my personal favorites. I should also mention that this list is only centered around PvE, since I'm not super into the game's PvP. And for those of you who care, every time I name off a weapon on the list, I'm gonna have a number in the bottom left corner of the screen indicating where I would rank it on the list in terms of visual design. Now, before we begin, let's quickly shout out some of my honorable mentions. Number 10, Death's Poker. How the hell is this thing a great sword? I mean, obviously it has a great sword moveset and stuff, but it looks more like a trusty staff Gandalf would be chillin' with while vibing off some Hobbit leaf. All jokes aside, this thing is a monster. The regular moveset is pretty solid, since greatswords just tend to perform well in this game, but this is obviously one of those weapons where everyone's here for the unique skill. Ghost Flame Ignition is one of the most useful moves in the entire game. The initial L2 conjures a ball of Ghost Flame, and from there you've got two options. The heavy attack follow-up allows you to just smack it and create a big AoE explosion, which is a pretty damn solid move in its own right. But the light attack follow-up is where this thing really shines. It allows you to send out a giant wave of ghost flame, coating the ground in it. It's basically like you're creating a big pathway of death which destroys anything that would dare to stand inside it. The skill itself does pure magic damage, scaling off your intelligence, while also coming with frostbite buildup, which is a big part of why it performs so well. The frost that comes from it builds insanely fast, meanwhile the regular magic damage is already putting in some good work. And of course, being an intelligence weapon along with dealing magic is pretty nice, since there are plenty of tools you can use to improve your magic damage. And you get the benefit of being able to use spells alongside it, meaning that you can just have a really chill playthrough of the game with this thing. The biggest downside is that the skill does take a decent amount of time to actually come out. And when you're still getting used to it, actually hitting some bosses with the Ghost Flame Trail can be a little unintuitive. But once you learn how to bait them into it, you're gonna be melting health bars in no time. I've also gotta mention that I think Ghost Flame stuff in general looks really cool. Something about the unnatural look of black and white flames just goes inconceivably hard in my opinion. And while I do really like a few other Ghost Flame weapons, this is definitely the one that I have the most fun with in practice. The only thing I don't like about this weapon is what you have to do to obtain it. Number 9, Star Fists. While I'm usually a huge advocate of big-ass swords and stuff, there's just something so beautiful about punching the lands between into oblivion. Just putting up your good old fisticuffs and having a field day with everyone. Using fist weapons that are genuinely viable in the FromSoft games is such an awesome feeling. But for whatever reason, these spiky balls just had to go the extra mile and be one of the most effective weapons in the entire game. The main reasons why they're as good as they are would be the heavy attacks and the stance breaking potential. When you charge the heavy attack of a weapon, it's usually seen as a bit of a commitment. But these things just charge so freakishly quick that you can consistently get them out even when going against the fastest bosses in the game. And when you combine this with the fact that these ridiculous wind spheres are capable of dealing massive stance damage for their speed, you're just gonna end up breaking the kneecaps of everything in the game. Though I have to admit that I often purely purely use the light attacks, since I kind of prefer the quickness of them, and it feels a little more fun dishing out rapid fire blows. Not to mention, one of the best things about the Star Fists is that they have practically zero requirements. This means that you pretty much have limitless potential in terms of how you build around them. You can just do a Faith build to get the benefit of stuff like Golden Vow, you could also try to capitalize on its blood loss buildup, or if you want, you could simply not think too hard about it and invest in strength. And best of all, you can just not do anything special with them. Since these spiky balls are already super effective without speccing into the proper stats, you can keep them in your back pocket and use them whenever you want. For example, in this footage fighting Godfrey, I was doing a playthrough with Eleanor's Pole Blade, but on a whim I decided to switch to the Star Fists, use the Axe Talisman and the Spiked Crack tier, and I still just had a really chill time kicking his ass. So while these things are definitely not among the flashiest weapons, it's hard to not appreciate how solid they are, along with the fun gimmick of turning Elden Ring into a boxing game. Speaking of flashy, at number 8 I have Eleanor's Pole Blade. This thing is so damn cool. While Twin Blades usually aren't considered to be one of the best weapon classes, they undeniably have some of the funnest movesets. And Eleanor's Pole Blade is without a doubt my favorite of the bunch, mostly because of the skill Bloodblade Dance.
Fast as fuck, boy.
I just love how FromSoft creates weapons that are capable of making your character spontaneously become super athletic. Like, you can be using a fat roll build and still jump around at high speeds. That's so stupid and hilarious. Visually, this skill is one of my favorites in the game. I think the blood trails look awesome, and it's super satisfying to pull off. I just can't help feeling insanely cool every time I use it. Unfortunately though, it is kind of a double-edged sword. If you're using this skill against any kind of enemy or boss that can be easily staggered, it's arguably overpowered. The speed that you dish out those swings is simply too much for them to handle, making it hard for them to fight back. It's without a doubt one of the best choices in the game if you want to safely annihilate Malenia, especially since the second attack of the skill allows you to back away and quickly evade danger, kinda like the Beast Hunter Safe's transforming attack that I've praised so much. It can also work pretty well against a lot of the giant slow-moving bosses, as long as you're able to time it properly. But if you're up against a foe that has both high poise and fast attacks, the skill doesn't really have much of a chance to shine. The animation is just a bit too long to consistently hit with it, and most of the time you're probably just gonna get interrupted halfway through. Of course, that doesn't mean I don't try to use it whenever I can. Actually managing to land it on those fast and sturdy bosses feels insanely cool, but it's often kinda just up to luck no matter how well you time it. Regardless, even without the skill, I still enjoy using this thing. It's got plenty of quick and viable attacks, and its unique charged heavy where you quickly spin a bunch of times in a row is cool as shit. Compared to other weapons on this list, it isn't much of a damage powerhouse, but using stuff like the winged sword insignias are helpful. And I honestly just think that any relatively quick weapon can be perfectly viable even if it doesn't have the best damage, since you'll never really have to rely on trading hits and can just use your actual knowledge of boss movesets to carry yourself. So it's still great and fun to use, whether or not the skill is right for the situation. Number 7, Dark Moon Greatsword. Honestly, this thing could have been cooler. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's Elden Ring's version of the Moonlight Greatsword, the signature From Software weapon, but I personally prefer using the versions found in Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, mostly for those thrusting attacks. And while it does obviously look really cool, this is definitely not my favorite version aesthetically. Alright, now that I'm done nitpicking, let's talk about why it's my 7th favorite out of 308 weapons in this game. In terms of performance, it's unquestionably up there with the best of the best, carried almost entirely by the skill's sheer damage. Getting the right talisman and tiers set up makes this do, like, I don't know, I can't even think of an adjective that properly describes how broken it is. It's also super efficient in terms of FP cost, because unlike most weapons with a projectile skill, this one's skill actually just charges it up and makes the heavy attacks shoot projectiles, which is awesome because it means you're given a lot of freedom in how much you can spam them. And naturally, just like the other Moonlight Greatswords, hitting the projectile while simultaneously landing the melee attack will cause the damage to skyrocket, while also still feeling really badass. I also think it has one of the most satisfying ways that you obtain a Moonlight Greatsword. It is pretty difficult to compete with the pants-pissing epicness of the Ludwig fight in Bloodborne, but having it be the final reward to Ronnie's massive quest line is very fitting and feels like a worthy place to find it. It's like finishing the quest just gives you access to one of the best win machines in the game. I'm sure it made a lot of new players think, damn, I guess this game isn't as hard as I thought. Overall, it's a really cool and effective weapon, plus I'm probably at least a little biased as a big fan of the FromSoft games in general, but with that said, there are still a few others I prefer. Number 6, Blasphemous Blade. From one overpowered weapon to another. I feel like if you ran a poll for players to decide what the best weapon in the entire game is, this thing would probably come out on top. And I think I'd have to agree. This sword just has so much going for it that it's really hard to deny its sheer level of usefulness. The unique skill on this thing is so stupidly nutty. On the surface, it's just a really solid flame attack that does great damage and knockback. But the main reason why it's so notoriously broken is because it simultaneously heals you whenever you land a hit. Every time you damage an enemy with it, you regain 10% of your max HP along with an extra 150. Plus, even when you're not using the skill, you get an extra 4% plus 40 health upon every kill. And you don't even need to use the weapon itself to do this. If you're just holding it in your left hand while killing an enemy with your right hand weapon, you still get the kill bonus, making it a great choice for power stancing. I don't know who at FromSoft thought this was a good idea, but all I have to say is cook again. Because of how spammable this thing is combined with the health regen, you can attempt to just live entirely off of blue flasks. Whenever someone asks me for advice on how to make Elden Ring easier, this thing is my go-to response. It allows the game to become way more chill while also just being hella fun to use. Taker's Flames is such a satisfying and visually appealing skill that I could easily finish a whole playthrough with it and never get bored. Charging up the flames over your head before slamming it down feels so cool, and I also love how it can go through enemies and potentially hit up to like 20 of them at once. Honestly, just the way this skill's projectile functions is the main reason why I have it above the Dark Moon Greatsword. Shooting blue beams is cool and all, but slamming down this beautiful fiery wave of awesomeness never gets old. The design of the weapon itself is also one of the most unique things FromSoft has ever concocted. This is the kind of stuff we need more from Dark Fantasy. A sword yoinked out of the innards of a giant snake that has the remains of all the warriors he's devoured still writhing on the surface. Now that's some Bloodborne level messed up shit. I doubt that we'll see a weapon similar to this one in any game for a while. Plus it's a great sword, which I just naturally find appealing because, I don't know, big sword brain goper, I guess. And it's a faith weapon, which is insanely helpful in this game since you get access to some nice support spells which serve to make things even easier for you. So if this list was purely based on how well the weapons perform, this thing would be a no-brainer candidate for the top spot, but there are just some other weapons I personally enjoy using more. Number 5, Greatsword. Ah yes, the Dragon Slayer from Berserk, which FromSoft always just chooses to call Greatsword for some reason, even though it's actually a colossal sword. I know that right now the FromSoft community is a little tired of Berserk fanboys calling everything in these games Berserk references, so I guess I'll spare you all the details about how it's one of my favorite manga series and stuff. Let's just talk about the weapon itself. I love how it's such an enormous chonky piece of shit. When it comes to the ridiculously high damaging physical weapons, this one is unquestionably my favorite. I love how if you use it early on, you'll think, damn, this has some nice hefty damage, but it's probably just gonna fall off in the late game, right?
Nope.
The further you get into the game, the more broken it becomes. I'm so glad that colossal swords have been given such a chance to shine in Elden Ring. Unfortunately, this big chonker does also weigh a shit ton of units, but if you just compensate with extra endurance, you can still have pretty decent fashion while medium rolling. But another awesome thing about colossal swords is their Ash of War variety. You've got Giant Hunt, which is hilarious. You can literally send some bosses flying upwards like they're light as a feather. There's also Vacuum Slice, which allows you to have a solid projectile option. And of course, the beautiful Lion's Claw. One of, if not my favorite Ash in the game. This thing feels like it was made for the Great Sword. I honestly don't think it would feel out of place whatsoever if it was just the weapon's default skill. The inhuman feat of doing a full front flip with this massive heap of iron is just so damn satisfying. Also, of course, you know, Burke reference and stuff. Plus, combining this skill with jump attacks makes this thing a top tier poise breaker, which I find to be a lot of fun. When it comes to the moveset, it's pretty solid. You've got some thrust attacks and lots of horizontal swipes which are good for crowds. But I'd be lying if I said it was perfect. I do kinda wish the heavy attacks were different from one-handed to two-handed, but oh well. In terms of the great swords throughout the FromSoft games, this is probably the best one, though I do prefer the default skill of the one from Dark Souls 3. It's just a lot more stylish. But overall, this thing is undoubtedly a monster in terms of damage and stance breaking. Definitely one of the best options in the game for a pure strength smashing build. Number 4, Nagakiba. While it's a lot of fun to mess around with stupid, high damaging stuff, sometimes there's nothing better than a reliable, fast swinging weapon. I should also give an honorable mention to the Uchigatana here. It was one of my go-tos for the first few months this game was out due to being reliable and found super early game. Plus I liked using it in previous FromSoft titles. But once I realized that the Nagakiba is also available early game while simultaneously being stupidly long, it's become my new top choice for if I ever want an infusible, quick swinging weapon. Katana movesets have always been really solid throughout every FromSoft game, and Elden Ring is no exception. But they're also one of the best weapon classes out there if your main goal is to enjoy boss movesets. While I obviously have a ton of fun using cool stuff like the Darkmoon Greatsword, it's not exactly the most intuitive if you're actually trying to get a thrill out of dodging a boss's complex moves. And that's where fast things like the katanas come in. Since there's less of a focus on simply dealing massive damage and trading hits, you can instead spend your time trying to perfectly dodge everything the boss throws at you while quickly attacking at every safe window they give you, which is a big part of why a lot of us play these games in the first place. However, one other nice thing about katanas is that if you still want to use cool ass moves with them, they've got an awesome Ash of War variety. You have Flaming Strike, Blood Blade, Chilling Mist, Bloody Slash, or of course you can literally just use the default skill Unsheath, which is ironically one of the best moves in the game. I remember back when I used to be a Moonveil and Rivers of Blood fan, since they're katanas that come with cool eye candy skills. But with the Nagakiba, you get the benefit of having an absurdly long one, while also having a variety of cool moves that you can slap onto it at any time. This really is the only katana you'll ever need. I mean, maybe aside from the new great katanas that are being added in the DLC. I can only imagine how cool those will turn out. But as of right now, the Nagakiba is one of my favorite weapons in the game, and I consider it a top tier choice for thoroughly enjoying the bosses. Number 3, Bolt of Gransax. But when it comes to the ultra cheesy, high damage weapons, I think the Bolt of Gransax is the most enjoyable. I don't use it as often as practical tools like the Nagakiba, but the sheer amount of enjoyment I get out of this thing is unrivaled by any other weapon in the game. This beautiful bolt is basically like Elden Ring's dedicated sniper rifle. And you might be thinking, considering that it has such immense range, the damage probably isn't that crazy, right?
Oh, shit!
Yep, it slaps. The fact that it manages to reach the realm of high tier damage while also having the longest range of any weapon in the game is such a deadly and fun combo to mess around with. I feel like I'm Zeus when I'm using this thing, just smiting those who are unworthy of being in my presence. This weapon is single-handedly what got me into maximizing damage in this game. I used to never really try optimizing talismans or tiers to have the best possible build. I was just good enough at the game that I didn't really consider wasting my time with stuff like that. But once I picked this thing up and witnessed what it was capable of, I just wanted to see how high I could make those numbers go. It's also undoubtedly a top tier candidate for me in terms of cool factor. The bolt itself looks great, and the way you get it from the actual bolt that Gransax used to attack Leyndell is awesome. Lore-wise, this is one of the most powerful weapons to ever grace the Lands Between. Furthermore, it has my single favorite looking skill in the entire game. game. Let's break this down real quick. You hoist it into the air, which causes your character to start floating. Meanwhile, the bolt turns into a red, lightning, glowy version of itself. And then you pull it back, charging it up as it becomes even bigger before yeeting it across the map at the speed of sound. I know there are tons of weapons in this game with cool animations, but something about this one just hits different for me. Once again, whoever thought of this, stand proud. You can cook. I also like how it allows you to show off the front of whatever you're currently wearing, especially with Blythe's armor. It just looks so clean. Now, when it comes to the regular moveset, it is pretty reliable since spears obviously come with mostly thrusting attacks, which are great for keeping the player safe. It's not really the most fun to use, a little repetitive, but I still feel pretty comfortable with it whenever I run out of FP. I also gotta mention that it is a little unfortunate that this is a dexterity-based weapon. First of all, because that just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like it would be perfectly fitting with faith scaling. And due to it only scaling off of physical stats along with having steep requirements, it doesn't get to comfortably fit alongside using spells unless you're at a really high level. But of course, it's still amazing as it is, and it has my personal favorite weapon name in the game. Bolt of Gransax. That goes so damn hard. Number 2, Royal Greatsword. You could probably make a solid argument that this weapon is the worst one on my list, but that doesn't stop me from loving it. First and foremost, it's my favorite looking weapon in the entire game. As I've said before, I'm a huge advocate of giant swords, and this just has to be one of the coolest ones I've ever seen. I love how the pommel has a curve to it that also ends up blending into the bottom half of the grip. The guard also looks great. I love the color along with the little jewels in it and how it bleeds into the blade, ending with all this cool shit here. And whatever these symbols are going up the blade look awesome as well. It also helps that the weapon fits nicely alongside my favorite fit in the game, since obviously it was made for it. Now that I'm done gushing about the design, let's talk about how this thing performs. It's a colossal sword, which is a weapon class I just tend to enjoy using, equipped with a pretty solid moveset. And while it's obviously not as useful as some other strength intelligence weapons like the Darkmoon Greatsword, it still pulls its own weight pretty damn well. Even without trying too hard to get a perfectly optimal setup, I've personally found it to spank shit pretty hard on a new game. But of course, there's also the unique skill Wolf's Assault. Unfortunately, this is one of those skills like Bloodblade Dance where it's insanely cool and fun to use while also being super effective against enemies that can be easily staggered. But when fighting a lot of the high poise, fast attacking bosses, you're often just gonna end up getting knocked out of it halfway through, which really sucks. Though of course, that's not gonna stop me from using it whenever I can. And one thing that's actually really fun is how you can use the initial jump of it to leap over any ground slam attacks, which gives you a lot of opportunities to effectively damage bosses that would otherwise be a nuisance to hit with it. Plus, it just feels so badass to pull off. Aside from the skill being a bit slow, my only major gripe with this weapon is that it doesn't do any passive frost buildup. Considering that the skill deals frost, and the weapon is wielded by Blythe, who serves Ronnie, who's basically like the queen of frost magic, it definitely could have had some on the regular attacks, especially since the skill isn't even that good at building frost in the first place. But all in all, it's a super fun and stylish weapon that I enjoy the hell out of, and one day I want to own a real-life replica of it. But for number 1, I've just gotta go with Morgott's Cursed Sword. The main reason why this is my favorite weapon in the game is because, while it isn't my top choice for any specific criteria, it's just super solid on every front. It doesn't have my favorite moveset, that goes to the Nagakiba. It doesn't have my favorite skill, that belongs to the Bolt of Gransax. And it isn't my favorite looking weapon, that would go to the Royal Greatsword. What makes it so damn good is that I think it's top tier in all 3 categories. The curved greatsword moveset is so over the top and stylish. I love how the follow-up heavy attacks make you spin around. It just feels so extra and I'm all for it. But at the same time, the moves are also fast enough to the point where I feel like I'm never trying to trade hits with it in boss fights. Similarly to the katanas, it's a great option for thoroughly enjoying the bosses and attempting to perfectly dodge their moves. The unique skill, Cursed Blood Slice, is without a doubt one of my top 5 favorite skills in the game. It looks really cool and is fun to use, like Eleonora's Bloodblade Dance, but it's also quick enough that you can actually consistently use it against the fast and sturdy bosses without getting hit. I love how you have the choice of either just doing the initial swing or following it up with a second one, since it allows you to decide how much you're willing to commit to it. The swings themselves also feel perfectly fitting along the other stylish curved greatsword moves, and the fire trails that you leave behind look awesome. Plus, I like the quick little run-up you do at the start. It helps to put an emphasis on quickly landing the attack without taking damage. When it comes to the weapon's design, it's pretty cool. I like how it stands out by having its unique rainbow oily look on the blade, and the way Morgott first reveals it hiding inside of his cane is pretty memorable. The only real downside I can think of is that the dexterity requirement is a bit steep, but since it's found decently far into the game anyway, that's most likely not going to be much of an issue. Also, due to its skill having fire effects along with the bleed, it's obviously not the best choice for fire-resistant enemies. But aside from those pretty minor setbacks, I think Morgott's cursed sword is super well-rounded. It looks cool, using the skill feels badass, and I can thoroughly enjoy fighting fun bosses while using it. It's definitely not the best weapon in the game, but for what I personally want out of a weapon, it gives me everything I could need and then some. So until Shadow of the Erdtree comes out, it stands as my favorite. But of course, that's just my opinion, so feel free to tell me about your favorite weapons in the comments. Also, let's talk about the upcoming DLC for a sec. Obviously, I'm going to be playing it the moment that it drops. There are a few things I look forward to more than new FromSoft content. But as you guys know, I'm also not really the best at quickly making videos. When I decide on a topic that I'm going to cover, I'll usually replay the game that I'm discussing once or twice before I start writing, just to make sure that all of my thoughts are solidified. So while I'm going to make an effort to put out videos on it as quickly as I can, I also don't want to force myself into rushing things and make it turn out feeling lazy. Ideally, I'll just play through it once, and then probably start things by making a boss ranking or something. But if I really feel like I have to play through it twice in order to finalize my opinions, I probably will. I'm just letting you guys know this ahead of time in case it seems to take weirdly long for me to drop content about it. Regardless, I'm super hyped, and I'm sure plenty of you guys are as well, so I hope we can all enjoy it to the fullest. I can't wait to use the hand-to-hand weapons and just kick Mesmer to death. Those perfume weapons also look pretty sick. Okay, honestly, all of it just looks great. This shit can't come any sooner. There's so much cool stuff we have yet to try. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Until next time.